I'm Dr. Christine Horner. I'm a former surgeon, board certified in both general surgery and plastic surgery. And I had a special interest in breast surgery. So my mom had actually died from breast cancer. And so I did a lot of breast reconstructive surgery, working with breast cancer patients. And so I got kind of frustrated as far as, seeing my patients becoming younger and younger, and just thought there's got to be something that women can do to help prevent this disease. And so ultimately that research, I left my practice so that I could really dedicate myself full time to teaching people how to become and stay healthy naturally. So right after that, I was introduced to thermography, and I thought, wow, I mean, this is like the coolest technology in it, and was very excited about it because of its potential as a preventative tool for women with their breast health. So eventually, about 6 years ago, I started working as a physician interpreter for MedHot. And then last year, I thought, I think it's time for me to open my own mobile thermal imaging business. So when I did that, as everybody knows, when you start a business, there's a lot of things that you have to do to lay the foundation. And so I was looking at all the various different documents that are needed for the client. And so one of the most important documents I thought was the pre-scan instructions. So what I did was to look at various different thermographer sites to see what their instructions were. I looked at the instruction sheet that was given to me by the company that I'm associated with, and then also looked at AAT, and then came up with my own document. So I'm going to go ahead and screen share here, and here we go. So when let's see if we can go to I don't know if this will work here. Yeah, okay, great. Okay, so when I first was going to the conferences for thermography, I saw this image. And so this is a thermographer in Europe who took an image of himself, and then he drank excessive amounts of alcohol and then took an image of himself the next day. And I thought, wow, that's very impressive about what alcohol can do to the human body. So, these are called mottling patterns. And as most everybody knows, I think, is these mottling patterns are non-specific because there's many different things that, can cause them. So anyway, looking at this, I just thought, all right, if this is what happens 24 hours after somebody's been drinking a lot, then we clearly want to wait probably 48 hours. I mean, I'm just guessing. I would say, 48 hours, we'd want to have somebody not drink so that we would prevent the mottling patterns from occurring. Now, the problem when we see those mottling patterns is that we don't know what's causing them. So there's many different things that can cause them. I actually did a presentation on this a couple of years ago for this meeting, but there's many things. So it's not just alcohol, smoking, chemotherapy, allergies, stress, and inflammation, autoimmune diseases, inflammatory bowel disease, leaky gut syndrome. I mean, we can go on and on about what can cause these mottling patterns. Mostly what we think they're representing is inflammation in the body. So when I have somebody who has had alcohol the night before, I don't know if it's the alcohol or if it's something else, that's causing it. So the only way we can prevent that from being an issue is to tell our patients not to drink before they have, thermal imaging done. Now, there was an incident, that occurred, which is when I do the interpretations and offer to the clients to have me go over the reports with them and, teach them a little bit about thermography, how I do an interpretation, and then go over their specific results, and then give them some coaching as far as the key things that they can do to improve their health based on what we're seeing with thermal imaging. So I had a client who scheduled with me. She went to a thermographer that was in a different state, and so she had mottling patterns. They weren't as bad as the image that I showed you from before. It wasn't like that, but anyway, she had mottling patterns. So I told her, hey, I don't know, what they're coming from. It could be, all these different things. And she said, well, I had a glass or two of wine last night. And she said, no one told me not to drink beforehand. So I thought, well, that couldn't possibly be right. I thought it would be, in the instructions. And so then she checked the instructions and it wasn't in there. And then she called her thermographer and was upset. And then the thermographer called me and was upset. And so then I was like, okay, now I really need to investigate this. And so I checked with a company that, I work with, and it actually was not in their pre-scan instructions. And then I actually called Bobby and said, hey, what's the AAT say about this? And so he said the guidelines say 4 hours, which, if we're seeing those changes in 24 hours, we know that is not accurate. But what it really showed us is that we don't know, right? We're just pulling numbers out of the air, and it's never been scientifically proven how long someone should wait from the time they had alcohol to when they should get, thermal imaging done. So this woman is is a patient of mine who had, I imaged her on July 5th. And so she had an excessive amount of drinking with her college girlfriends and normally didn't drink. And of course was drinking the day before because it was July 4th. And this is what she looked like on July 5th. So the problem with all these modeling patterns is not only do we not know where they're coming from, they can be obscuring other patterns, that are there. And we just don't know, how to interpret them. So we really need to have, the scientific data on how long, somebody should abstain from alcohol before their image. So Bobby said to me, why don't you take on doing this study? And initially I thought, oh, okay, well, this seems like a fun study. I'll just, have my friends and family come over to my house and we'll have a drinking party. And then, I'll image them probably 4 hours later so we can see what it looks like, regarding the AAT guideline recommendation of 4 hours. But then it's like, okay, then, well, wait a minute, like if somebody's going to drink, how much are they going to drink? And it's like, well, it could be 1 to 3, drinks over the course of, I don't know, 2 hours. And then you're going to image them 4 hours later. Well, that's, 6 hours after that I have people in my house. It's just logistically, I could see where it was going to be a little difficult. And of course, then you want to image the next day at 24 hours, the next day again, at 48 hours, hopefully, so we could get, that data. So an issue that came up for me then was that, I'm not a person who publishes scientific studies. I'm like not a clinical researcher. And so I thought, well, I'm kind of making this up. It's like, wouldn't it be great if I had somebody to talk to who is an expert in setting up studies that could give me, some guidelines with it. The next thing I realized is that, in medical research, the more data you have, the more valid it is. And so then I thought, well, this seems kind of silly that I'm just having a few friends and, family members come over to my house, to image them. And so why don't I see if I can get thermographers from all over the world, to participate in this? And so I contacted the IAMT, the Institute for Medical Advancement of Thermography, which I'm a member of. And so they sent an email out to all the people in their membership and invited them to participate in this study. I also called several thermographers that I'm friends with, I do, readings for, and said, hey, this would be a fun study to do. So ultimately what happened was that nobody, participated in it. And everybody that I had invited and said, oh yeah, sure, I would love to do that, canceled for one reason or the other. So, I don't have the data. But this is something that actually brought up a bigger issue. So just as a side, this is somebody who has systemic inflammation and didn't drink. So again, it looks just like the person who drinks. So again, when we see these modeling patterns, we don't know, what's causing them. So the things that's really needed is that we need to have ongoing research so that we have a sound scientific basis for not only our recommendations that we give, but our interpretations too. Because there's many times as an interpreter where I'm going, is that really what they say it is? I mean, I don't know. And you can't find anything in medical research, to really confirm it. And then, so the other thing that would be really helpful is to have a system in place where we could really identify what the issues are, like the things we most need to research, experts to help with the protocol, because again, I'm not an expert in that, and I thought that would be incredibly helpful. And also then if we have a group of thermographer volunteers that want to participate in these studies, then it would be so much easier for us to say, okay, then we have this next thing we want to look at, and we already have people set in place that want to participate with that. We also need somebody who's an expert like statistician and how to publish, studies so that we can potentially publish the studies that we're collecting all this data on. And then finally, I still think it's a great thing for us to investigate what the effects of alcohol are and how long they last so that we can give, sound scientific recommendations as far as how long somebody should wait before they drink alcohol. So I would like to put out there kind of a call for participants in this study. And so if you're interested, then please, contact me or contact Bobby, and we'll start kind of collecting, some folks and see if we can't get this study done. So thank you so much. And I really look forward to hopefully working with some of you on this great science.